in this video, let us focus on the hair and nails. So recall that these are some of the appendages of the skin that derived from the epidermis. So by the epidermal invaginations, hair is an elongated keratinized structure which is found within an epidermal invagination. So remember, hair is a derivative of the epidermis. So the epidermal invagination sort of like creates what we call a hair follicle, and then within that hair follicle is where the hair shaft will form. Right. Hair is mainly found on thin skin. Remember, we do not have hair on thick skin, so we find hair on thin skin. Alright, so it is found everywhere else except the skin of the palms, the soles. The lips do not have hair. Lips are thin skin, but they do not have hair. The glans, penis, clitoris, and the labia minora. Alright, so the growth of hair is discontinuous. It does not follow any pattern, and the keratin which we find in hair is much harder than that in the stratum corneum. Alright, so this is the structure of a hair. Let us focus on this central image here. Alright, so this slightly colored thing is our hair, and then this is the hair bulb. Alright, the deeper part of the hair follicle is what you call the hair bulb, and from this region up to this region we call it the root of the hair, and then the part of the hair which is above the skin, we refer to it as the hair shaft. Alright, so remember, hair is formed by the invagination of the epidermis. So as the epidermis invaginates, it brings with it the dermal papilla. This dermal papilla, it brings with it the dermal papilla, and as it brings the dermal papilla, it also brings with it the most deep layers of the epidermis. So it brings the stratum basal with it. Alright, so in the hair bulb we have dermal papilla, we have a layer of stem cells which you call the stratum basal, and this layer will give rise to the cells which will form the hair. Alright, this region here, remember, it has a dermal papilla, and it also has the blood vessels which will supply the hair as it grows. Alright, so the initial part of the hair, we term it the hair matrix, and it is characterized by rapidly dividing keratinocytes derived from the stratum basale, which was brought over at this point. Right, and then these cells, they are also undergoing keratinization, then they're also undergoing melanin deposition. So remember, the stratum basale, it also has those melanocytes, so they are also brought over at this region to supply melanin to the cells or to the keratinocytes which will make up the hair. Alright, so cells of the hair, the keratinocytes of the hair, also undergo differentiation as the cells of the epidermis, but this differentiation is not entirely the same. It's similar but not entirely the same. Alright, so the hair matrix which is found around this region will continue to form the hair as it grows up and up and up and up and up. Now let us look at the cross section of the hair, this one here. So at the center of the hair, that's where we find the medulla. Right, and this medulla is characterized by keratinocytes which are moderately keratinized, large and vacuolated. Surrounding the medulla we find the cortex. Alright, So in the region of the cortex, that's where we find keratinocytes which are cuboidal, highly keratinized, right? And then the region surrounding the cortex, we find the cuticle. And then this cuticle is mainly made up of squamous cells which are highly keratinized. So take note that the hairs, they extend into the dermis and they can also extend into the hypodermis, right? So we can identify this is the hypodermis because of the presence of adipocytes. All right, and then there are structures which are associated with hair follicles. First of all, we see this sebaceous gland here. All right, we have this band of smooth muscle which we call the arrector pili. We also have sweat glands, these ones here. They are all associated with the hair follicles. All right. Now, let's look at the sheaths around the hair follicle. We have two main sheaths. We have the epithelial root sheath, and then we have the connective tissue sheath. We have internal root sheath, which is continuous with the outermost cells of the hair bulb. So this is the hair bulb here. So the internal root sheath is continuous with the outermost cells of the hair bulb, and it runs from the hair bulb up to and until the point of attachment of the sebaceous gland. So we do not find an internal root sheath above the level of attachment of the sebaceous gland. We only find it below and up to the and down to the hair bulb. The external root sheath, we have our internal root sheath, this one, and then the external root sheath covers the internal root sheath all the way up to the epidermis. Right. It is continuous with the stratum basale and the stratum spinosum of the epidermis. Right. Then exterior to the external root sheath, we find a connective tissue sheath, this one. All right, this connective tissue sheath is the most exterior sheath surrounding the hair follicle, and it's made up of connective tissue derived from the dermis. All right, so take note, we have a structure here which we call the glassy membrane. So this is simply a thickened basement membrane located between the epithelial root sheath and the connective tissue sheath. So it separates the two. All right. Now let's look at arrector pili. This is a bundle of smooth muscle fibers which are attached to the hair follicles. Some texts say the middle of the follicle and to the papillary dermis. All right. So it will serve such as to erect the hair shaft. So when it contracts, it pulls the hair shaft into a more erect position. All right. And then it also assists in the secretions of sebaceous glands. So this is our arrector pili muscle, all right, attaching onto the hair follicle. Okay, so an important point to note is that at the point where the arrector pili attaches to the hair follicle, there is a slight bulge. So this is the arrector pili, all right, attaching to the hair follicle. There's a slight bulge, this bulge. All right, so within this bulge are located the stem cells for hair regeneration. And as the sebaceous gland is also attached to the hair follicle almost at the same region, okay, we find the stem cells for the sebaceous glands there as well. So this has clinical importance. When the skin, the epidermis of the skin is completely damaged, such that we no longer have a stratum basale, we can have regeneration of skin from the cells, the progenitor cells located within this bulge of the hair follicle. Okay. Now let us look at the nail. A nail is a hard plate of keratin. This keratin is much harder than the keratin which we find in hairs. Okay. And the proximal part of the nail, we call it the nail root. Alright. So in this region, the proximal part, that's where we find the nail root. And from the nail root, we have the nail matrix. Alright. So the nail matrix is the one which will form the nail plate. Okay. So this is the nail plate. This structure. That's our nail plate. And the nail plate lies on the nail bed. Our nail bed, it is made up of only the stratum basal and stratum spinosum layers. And on the surface of the nail, we have an extension of the skin which will form what we call the cuticle, and we refer to this as the eponychium. And on the distal end of the nail plate, where it becomes free of the nail bed, we have what you call the hyponychium at this region here. That's where we have our hyponychium. Alright, this structure of a nail, histological structure, we have our eponychium at this region. Alright, where the stratum corneum of the skin becomes continuous with the nail plate. Okay, this is where we have our nail matrix forming from the nail root and growing distally over the distal phalanx, right, forming our nail plate, this one here, which will lie on the nail bed. So recall that the nail bed is made only of stratum basal and stratum spinosum, right? Here we'll find the hyponychium, where the nail plate becomes free of the nail bed. So for the growth rates, fingernails grow at the rate of 3 millimeters per month, and toenails grow at the rate of 1 millimeter per month. That's why we have to cut fingernails more regularly than toenails. For the clinical correlates, we have a condition known as alopecia, which is the loss of hair to produce baldness. Alright, so this can result from many factors, one of which is chemotherapy. So patients undergoing chemotherapy or lose hair. Alright, so this is because chemotherapy, it stops mitotic activity in the hair matrix such that the hair can no longer grow and the hair will be lost. But however, this can be reversible. Alright, the growth of hair is not the same in all parts of the body. For example, we have hair in the region of the pubis growing mainly as a result of hormonal factors, and it starts to grow at puberty. So the growth of hair is not the same.